to who are there to support the development of the industry. So I want you to participate and engage as much as you can. There is always something new to learn at these sessions. That much I can tell you, always something new. And it doesn't matter how few we are. I think the important thing is that you recognize that you are here, you've made a decision to be here, and we really appreciate it. So please do have the best of time, be in the moment, learn as much as you can, and remember that this is about advancing the development of not just yourself, but of the city of Montego Bay, the western region, Jamaica, and by extension, the entire Caribbean region. We have a part to play, we have stories to tell, we have stories to manage, we are creative, we are also innovative, and this is the opportunity to strengthen the way our own position and positioning of those values. So thank you for coming out, and once again, welcome to the UWI Mona Western Jamaica campus. Please enjoy our hospitality and our care, and do make the best of this open day.
Hi, morning everyone. Thanks Patrick. I just want to endorse what Patrick said about collaboration being the key to moving this industry forward. And I think that we have done a good job so far of working with each other, JAMPRO, and the other agencies represented here. And the way forward is definitely to maintain that and to see where we can look for more areas of collaboration. My name is Tristan Aline. I'm a senior officer from JAMPRO's FAM department, that's film, animation, and music. And what we do is we promote, support, and facilitate the creative industries. Part of that facilitation is film registration. That means that when you're filming, coming from abroad, destination filming or local filming, we encourage you to come to the Film Commission first so that we can better guide you in terms of who to approach first and what permits that you need and that kind of thing. And that's critical because it's saving you time and it's saving you money. And you are going to have to go to these agencies anyway. And so our position in that process is to help direct you and to make that process a lot more efficient. One of those bodies is Spectrum, and we have here Mr. Quan Wilson. I'm going to invite him up to speak a little bit about what Spectrum does and why they're important.
Good morning, everyone. I am Quan Wilson, and I'm with Spectrum Management Authority. It is a pleasure for us at Spectrum to be here, and I would like to thank the JAMPRO team on behalf of the Spectrum Management Authority for inviting us here. And also, I would just say that to our host, the UWI Mona Western Campus, thank you for hosting us here. Now, Spectrum Management Authority, it is not a common agency that persons are familiar with. And it is events like these that we are very excited and happy to be a part of, because we see this as an opportunity to bring our agency to the forefront of the minds of persons. Now, Spectrum Management started in 2001, and we were established under the Telecommunication Act of 2000. If you can recall that period that we had monopolization of the telecommunication market. Now, we were moving from having just a single telecommunication provider to the introduction of competition in the market. Now, our agency was formed out of the Telecommunication Act of 2000, and we also have some regulatory responsibility out of the Act of the Radio and Telegraph Control Act of 1960. The information, I apologize for the error, it's not 2000. Now, before Spectrum Management Authority exists, there was a Post and Telecom Department. Now, Post and Telecom, when you hear of Post and Telecom, you think of mail, but the Post and Telecom Department was the entity that was responsible for managing radio communication. But the government at the time thought it fit to have an entity that would have sole responsibility of the radio spectrum. So, as I just stated, we have responsibility for the radio spectrum. Now, what is the radio spectrum? A layman would know it as wireless communication. So, any form of wireless communication, that is what we manage. So, if you have a broadcast radio station, whether it be Zip FM, Radio Jamaica, you need to have a radio frequency assigned to your entity so that you can broadcast. If you are a telecom provider, mobile service, you need to have a spectrum license. If you have two-way radios, walkie-talkie, you own a taxi company, you need to have a radio spectrum to utilize the service. Now, radio spectrum management is done by SMA in Jamaica, but there is an overall governing body that has overall legislation over the use of radio frequency in the world stage, and that is the ITU. So the rules that we follow are in alignment with the ITU. Now, some of our responsibilities are highlighted below. We are here to manage the radio spectrum. So what is managing the radio spectrum? We need to assign frequencies to different services. We need to also manage how it is being utilized, and we also need to cooperate with different governmental bodies. So these, some of our major stakeholders are the OUR, the Broadcasting Commission, the ministry, in which we advise the minister and also represent the minister in international meetings. Now, that is our local stakeholders. In terms of the international market, we liaise with the ITU, and for the Caribbean, we have the CTU and also the Commonwealth Telecommunication Organization. And in terms of the regional, which is the Latin America, we have also ITSO, which is the International Telecommunication Satellite Organization. Now, our mission and our vision is to shape your world through wireless. We want to promote the use of wireless communication. So we are here to provide services which enable you to properly use those wireless services without interference, with the guarantee that whatever equipment that you utilize, it will work and work without any issues in Jamaica. In doing so, we have licenses and certification. So the first item on the list is the private radio station and CB. So private radio means that if you have, as I said, a company which provides communication such as a taxi company, radio station, mobile services, they all fall under the private radio station. The word private may seem a bit confusing because you're saying you're offering service, but we call it private. The word private just means that it is on your network. You have sole responsibility for that service. The other services that we offer are the amateur readers and alien amateurs. In times of disaster, when communication is down, those are one of our first responders in terms of keeping the communication. These amateurs are able to communicate internationally with just a piece of equipment. So they are very critical in times of disaster, and they work closely with ODPEM, and we are the ones who issue license to AM radios. And you will see the term alien amateurs. That means that there are persons who travel to Jamaica with their equipment. They also need to have a license with us. Maritime and aeronautical. So the ships out at sea, they need to communicate with land and with each other. Also with aeronautical, the airlines, communications. The SEAA is here, and they know that we are one of the critical partners in terms of the communication that happens between the airlines, the controllers, and having a safe air space. Can you imagine if the pilot is flying and is not able to communicate as to what is going on the ground and in the air? So we are very critical to that. Finally, we have type approval and technician. Now, devices that uses radio spectrum are required to have certain standard of operation. As you know, there is a proliferation of different devices, and we have high-cost devices and low-cost devices. China is pushing out a lot of devices. You have replicas, you have phones that are fake phones, and so forth. What happens is that if these phones are not, or any other radio device are not built to a specific standard, they can cause harm interference and also cause harm to the users. So what we do is that we have a type approval certification where any device that enters Jamaica's marketplace needs to have a type approval certification once it uses radio frequency. If you are familiar with FCC in the US, you will look at some of your components and you will see a marking FCC ID. So each one of those radio devices require a FCC ID to operate in the US. The same happens in Jamaica. If it's a wireless device, you're going to need to have a SMA type approval certification for that device. So those are the licensing and certification services that we do. We facilitate those through band planning, and this is done by determining what service is used where. So you can come to us and you say that you want to operate a radio station, and you say that you're going to use 76.5 megahertz. In Jamaica, that is not allowed. So you will not be allowed to utilize that frequency. But if you're in Asia, 76 megahertz is usable in Asia. So for those of you who have Japanese imported vehicles, you will see that some of the radios that they have in them starts at 76 and goes up to about 90. So that is their band of operation for their broadcast radios. And you will know that you cannot use those radios in Jamaica because our radio stations are about So you may go out and purchase a band expander, or you need to replace that radio so that you can listen to our radio station. So that is just a synopsis of band planning. So we plan which service is used in what frequency. And we do that for all services, from mobile communication, go down to the amateur radios, and also to satellite communication. All of those services are planned by us. Monitoring and inspection and interference. Now, in order for us to ensure that what has been planned and assigned is used correctly, we need to know what is out there. So we have a team that does monitoring, which utilizes radio frequency equipment to go out and detect signals. We also do inspections of radio facilities. And lastly, if you have a license with us and you have interference on that particular device, you can communicate with us and we will investigate and resolve that issue. Now, as I had mentioned, these are different wireless communication equipment. So you have the amateur readers they use in terms of emergency situations, but you also use AM readers who use it as an hobby. So they go out and they communicate worldwide with each other, and it is a tool that for their own personal enjoyment. The VSAT, that is used for data communication. So if you want to send mass data to another country, you can use VSAT communication. You can use it for internet companies. If you want to provide internet services, you can download from the VSAT because they communicate to satellite and get the wireless communications. The other information down here, you have the two-way radios such as the taxis, police use these. Other emergency services, the fire, they use the private two-way radios. CB band is also a tool used by certain individuals to do hobby or to communicate in terms of emergency. Medical equipment. A lot of the medical technology that exists now is being pushed by wireless communication. If you look at the defibrillators, that the pacemakers that certain heart conditions, they are now wireless. So a doctor is able to regulate the rate of a person's heartbeat based on wireless communication to an implantable device in their stomach, in their chest. Now, can you imagine if you assign a frequency that a radio station like ZIP is on? So it is pumping out boop, 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 and your heart machine is on that same frequency. You will be like shaking, you'll be moving to that vibration. So SMA needs to regulate and control those devices to ensure that those devices for health use needs to be on a particular protected frequency. So we are very strict in terms of who uses what and where it is being used, and you can see that from the different devices used in medical and scientific equipment. This is an example of the tools that we use. So we use spectrum analyzers, we use radio receivers, and we use monitoring systems. So we have both fixed and mobile monitoring system. So we are always watching what is happening in Jamaica. So we have fixed sites that are across Jamaica, from Kingston to Montego Bay, St. Ann, in Westmoreland, in St. Elizabeth, and in Portland. So these devices are always on, always watching what is happening in the radio spectrum. And then we have these devices, the mobile, where we can go into areas and see specifically what is happening in those areas. I had mentioned about band planning. It's not very clear here, But these different colors represent the different services that are that we assign across the radio spectrum band. In terms of the creative industry, where do we fall? Well, we want to, and we have a partnership with Jampro because as the introduction was made, we want it to be easy for the development of the Jamaican market. And we know that if things aren't done in a structured and in a way that allows the creative industry to grow, so we want to partner with Jampro in terms of having that relationship that if someone who is interested in the industry can go to Jampro, outline what are their needs or what they're going to do, and then they will be able to liaise with Spectrum and allow you to have the prerequisite license so that you can offer your service without any interference or issues. So in terms of what the creative industries use, they use communication devices. So if you're on set, you may need to be communicating with two-way radios to other operators. You may use aerial photography, so you may use drones for that service. You may also use VSAT. So like when we had a big sporting event such as the Cricket World Cup, that had to be broadcast live internationally. How do they do that? They need to have a secure link out of Jamaica. So you have fiber, but you also need backup. So they need to have like VSAT communication. So that is also for the bigger events, you need backup communication out of Jamaica. So those three are some of the equipments that you will utilize, and they require a Spectrum license or a Spectrum certification. Now, we offer both long-term and short-term Spectrum certification because in the film industry, you can have, you just need to be doing some work for 6 months or it's a 3 months project. You don't want to have one of our standard license, which is a year or 4 years or 5 years. You just want to come, do your work, and leave. So we have short licenses and short-term certification. I mentioned before, devices that uses radio frequency. Don't want you to enter or utilize devices that are contrary to our standards. So we need to know what is being used and how it is being used. And that is it for my presentation. I'd like to thank Jampro once again for inviting Spectrum Management Authority, and we are here to help and assist in growing the creative industry. Thank you.
Thank you, Con. As you see, the radio devices that use radio frequencies, they have a lot of elements that we may not necessarily understand. So it's important to use the resources that we do have and to use them early to let us know when you're filming so that we can put you in touch with these bodies and apprise you of everything that you need to know about what concerns that you may have to deal with. Next up, we have Stephen Case, Acting Manager of the Ministry of National Security, Security and Standards Division. Can we get a round of applause for him, please?
Good morning, everybody. How are we doing today? Allow me to offer my thank yous to Jamaica Promotions Corporation. I used to know it as Jamaica Trade and Invest. I don't know if I still go by that moniker. And let me also thank our hosts, the University of the West Indies, Western Jamaica campus, right here in what was proudly announced as the city of Montego Bay. My name is Stephen Case, and as was said earlier, I am from a policy unit in the Ministry of National Security, the Security Policy and Risk Management Affairs Division to be specific, and to be even more specific, the Protective Security Unit. You will see on your program that Miss Samantha Allen was originally slated to present. I am the lamb caught in the thicket on her behalf, and I just crave your indulgence with me as I go through a very important presentation for us this morning as it pertains to the acquisition of special permits for items that are important to this particular creative industry that the Jamaica Film Commission proudly represents, if I may say so. So this will be a brief presentation. I also prepared some handouts that hopefully will pique your interest and assist in looking at our presentation as we go through. So perhaps we're all aware of the Ministry of National Security's mandate, but in a nutshell, the Ministry of National Security is the primary body of government, of central government, that contributes to the establishment of a safe and secure environment for all Jamaicans by the enforcement of laws and the securing and protection of our borders. But I'd want to hasten to say, even while we're here in Montego Bay, St. James, and we all know the external realities in these neck of the woods, that the Ministry of National Security considers itself as well as a facilitator of trade and industry. So our regulatory regime is meant not to be a burdensome bureaucratic stumbling block, but to be that channel that allows for the confident practice of all industries that Jamaicans would seek to lawfully pursue. So we see trade facilitation as one of the complexions that the Ministry of National Security will bear from time to time. We, in order to have this facilitation, the Ministry of National Security has and partners in a well-established legislative and policy framework for the encouragement of creative industries such as the film industry. And one of the points of intersection would be in the acquisition and use of security restricted items, which we'll go into some more detail about later on. But they include and are not limited to firearms, including what we call imitation firearms, ammunition, pyrotechnics, and other kinds of explosives. And the three main pillars of that legislative or that regulatory framework are the Firearms Act, the Gunpowder and Explosives Act, and the Customs Act. So these pillars hold up our framework, and without going too much into the legalese, it is sufficient to say that they guide and direct our authorization process that we have some responsibility for, and that the Jamaica Customs Agency, vis-a-vis the Ministry of Finance, has authority for. So I hinted at it before that the Ministry of National Security really wants to have a balanced approach or a balanced posture. When it comes to security restricted items such as firearms and ammunition, we're all aware of the very present risk and dangers that they pose. Some recent statistics indicate from our law enforcement partners that approximately 8 out of every 10 major country is committed with the use of a firearm. So it is very important that our regulatory regime, to protect our citizens and in pursuit and in honor of our international commitments such as treaties and conventions, that our framework is fairly robust. And we seek to do that by stipulating a particular method or procedure by which persons in the creative industries may lawfully and properly acquire the use of these security restricted items. How many of you have seen this traveler's note before? Have you ever seen it? Yes, you've seen it. Right. You may have seen this. Perhaps your travel agency, your airline, or you've come across it from the Ministry of National Security's website. This, in a nutshell, captures the categories of items that are restricted under the Customs Act that require concomitant authorization to be imported into Jamaica by the customs requires this. In a 2010 import prohibition order that supports the Customs Act, there is a schedule that lists several items, and they include some of these. So the image is not so great. Is this the pointer? Is this the pointer? Right. So we have riot gear, metal detectors, handcuffs, ammunition, knives and swords. We have radar detection devices, crossbows, holsters, firearms, motorcycles with a CC rating above 700 cc. We have toy guns or imitation guns, replica guns, etc. Pepper sprays, what we call firecrackers, which are pyrotechnic devices, flares included. These are some items that may be used in the film industry. Bulletproof vests, armored tanks, camouflage material and gear, percussion caps, dynamite and other explosives, firearms, laser, lighting equipment and technologies. And here we have card reading devices such as credit card reading devices. It's not an exhaustive list, but it is a representative list of the kinds of items that we regulate. So if your film project is to include the use of any of these items, you would need to be doing business with the Customs Agency and the Ministry of National Security by extension. So the focus of the presentation really will be to go through what the procedure is. So, starting over here, the first thing the applicant would need to put in place or to have is some supporting documentation. What are we looking for? We're looking for documentation. We are looking for the Film Commission and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs endorsement bearing specific reference to the items to be imported. So this would just be a simple letter from the Film Commission or from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs that applicant, whatever the applicant's name is desirous of importing and clearing the following items for use in a production to begin on or about start date and ending on or about some end date. And this is an essential requirement document in the procedure. We're also looking for, well, I've said this before, details indicating the length of the filming and the date of the filming. But we also require some other documentation. For firearms, we're looking for a firearm license if it's to be a firearm that is to be used. Photo identification and documentation outlining a local security expert that will be engaged to safeguard the use and handling of the firearms during the length of the production. If the police will be needed to provide that security, then this must also be clearly communicated in the correspondence. For imitation firearms or for toy guns, we're looking for photographic or other detailed description of the items that are being considered. And we're also looking for documentation outlining the security arrangements, as I've mentioned before. For explosives and pyrotechnics, and a critically important piece of documentation will be proof of competence for your expert to handle these explosive items. The authority that governs the gunpowder and explosives legislation is currently the ministry with responsibility for mining. And they are the body that certifies the competence of individuals or entities for handling explosives, which include pyrotechnics. And again, security commitment, similar to what we mentioned before. What do we mean by security arrangements? There must be some entity who is charged with responsibility for safeguarding the items while you're in production. So this includes everything from human storage arrangements to your emergency or your incident response or incident support, whether or not these will be persons that remain on set or persons that are notified to respond from a remote location. So, having had all of these in place in the preliminary stage, the importer will then write to the Ministry of National Security with the prescribed application form that I have been circulating to make their submission. So they have a cover letter, but they also complete this application form. The application form is available on the Ministry of National Security's website under our resources section. It's it also support application, and some of them I've mentioned before, such as photograph or description of the item, the firearm license of the person who is seeking to import, particularly the photograph bearing page of the firearms license booklet, or if it is the firearms license card, then the front and back faces of the firearms license card. purchased, invoice for the item is good to accompany. And this can accompany the letter to the ministry. So with these documents together, the submission is made to the Ministry of National Security, addressed to the Permanent Secretary, raised to the attention of the Director for Protective Security, and it takes approximately 5 working days for processing. Due diligence is conducted, and it is escalated to the Minister for his decision. The same Customs Act acknowledges National Security as the grant that the will. So the application is processed, submitted to the minister, and the minister delivers his written response to the applicant. In the meantime, the information is communicated to the Commissioner of Customs, and the information is also communicated to the Commissioner of Police. If the police are to be the security providers, then that particular detail is also mentioned in communication to the Commissioner of Police. And thereafter, the importer is contacted by the ministry and informed of the minister's decision. The minister may support or not support and clearance of the item, and is communicated. Essentially, the minister's favorable communication is the authorization that the customs agent will, and thereafter the customs agency may permit the importation and clearance of the items at our borders, right? In the absence of making such a submission, security restricted items are likely to be detained by customs, and they would solicit, or they would require that the from the Minister of National Security. Now, there's an important note here. I'm sorry the text is a bit small. After the shoot, inventory must be submitted to the police and the Film Commission to account for all the items, whether they are to be returned to the country of origin, whether they are to be confiscated, whether they are to be held for safekeeping, because that happens at times, or whether they are to be destroyed. So any of these scenarios could obtain at the end of a shoot or at the end of a production. They are exported or they are held. They normally arrive as a temporary import and they are exported not long after. Right? And customs permits that. So this, in a nutshell, is how the authorization procedure works for special permits for the use of the acquisition and use of security restricted items such as firearms, ammunition, explosive devices in this very important industry. Again, I want to close by saying, and I'm sure my colleague from the civil for these sentiments. In government, it is our desire, industry in general, creative industries particularly, thrive so that Jamaica can continue to make its mark and compete on the world stage. That is balanced with the necessary considerations in our legal and regulatory processes so that this environment can be here not just for the present generation but for generations to come. I mentioned earlier that Jamaica is not only bound by its local international obligations, security obligations. My colleague may speak to more of those for aviation industry when he comes. But there is a necessary overlap industries and our national security governance apparatus when it comes to the use of security. Was informative, and that if there are any further queries that you may have, the Ministry of National Security, and we will be happy to satisfy your queries. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen Case. With the number of guns we use in our films, we should know why the Ministry of National Security is important. I want to invite up Mr. Jerome Davis to speak to the special permits associated with the Jamaica Civil Aviation Authority. Thanks, Jerome.
Morning, everybody. Can you turn on back the lights? I don't have a presentation. I'll just speak, please. All right. Wow, it's almost lunchtime. All right, so I won't be that long. All right. Who we are, the Jamaica Civil Aviation Authority, is basically the Jamaica's requirement to keep safe and secure airspace within our country. That means any aircraft that flies over, you have SANCA International, all the various flights come in. We regulate how they come in, basically. So our traffic controllers will tell them at what altitude, what, and we ensure that they follow the standards that is respected for the country. The responsibility that we fall under is an ICAO, the International Civil Aviation Organization requirement, which Jamaica is a signatory. So because of that, they had to form the Jamaica Civil Aviation Authority to regulate the aviation industry within Jamaica as a contracting state. How we and the film industry work, it's this. With the advent of drones, you come up into airspace. 0 to 400 feet, you're in my territory. You come to my home. Why? Helicopters start flying at 400 feet. So if your drone comes up into that airspace and, like Mr. Case would say, we're flying the Prime Minister over, he just took off, we have an accident. You kill a Prime Minister, you kill a member of state. So what the Jamaica Civil Aviation Authority is to ensure that the airspace is safe for all citizens of Jamaica. So with the advent of these drones now, we want you guys to come in, bring in creative ideas, businesses, anything, whatever it is. When you have your filming, working with Jumper, of course, to ensure the safety, because there is even restricted airspace that you might not be aware of. Big example, everybody knows the Shaggy and Friends. Everybody loves the footage. A lot of it is drone, but it's in restricted airspace. So when you come to me, or to the Jamaica Civil Aviation Authority, we speak to the Ministry of National Security and say, all right, we have Mr. Tom Jones from this company working with Shaggy. We see the permits, we see this. He is capable. So if you have hours of flying the drone, if you are certified in the US, you're registered in some other contracting state within ICAO, that will give us enough grounds to approve you. And then we'd grant you a permit based on whatever is happening. Let me give you another scenario. Currently, Boys and Girls Champs is coming up. That is another big event. Many people want to go in, but you have to look at intellectual property. You have to look at airspace will be locked because the Prime Minister might be there. So when you have, yes, it's nice, you love the footage, I love the footage, I actually want to get a drone myself, but the whole thing of just keeping everything safe You don't want people with nefarious ideas coming in the mix and causing an incident or scenario that we don't want. So, moving on, let's talk about the permit process. It's simple. It is you submit an email to us. I'll have the information sent out through the coordinates of this event. You send us your information saying you'd like to film. We actually have an advisory on our website, which is Jamaica's jcaa.org. .j resources where we actually tell you how a hobbyist can use theirs safely and how commercial people must come to us and get their stuff done. So you give us the date, the type of drone, the period that you want to do, and the exact location. All right, we're back. Because at that time, we may come in to actually inspect the event or inspect your operation to deem you as certifiable, because we are actually in the process of building regulations. So when you later on come again and reapply, we'll upgrade you to a point where you just have to notify us, because our current regulations is being redone with the minister and we are getting approved. So film industry and the JCA works is that we allow you to build on your creativity safely so that it doesn't impact negatively on our citizens in the country. Are there any other questions? Because I know this is new technology and there might be some aspects that you guys might want to ask. Yes, yes, sir. Get a mic for you. Yes.
Okay. Oops. Yes. Morning. My name is Dario Shields. I'm a film director. Regarding coming to you guys, is there going to be a cost towards getting registered or certified or anything like that?
Currently, the permit is free. We don't have any financial restraints at this point in time, because the aim of the government is to build industry at this time. So we have no cost for this permit or for this process.
Okay, no, I understand that, I fully understand regarding the airport. But what if I have something, a special scene that I wanted to shoot over by the airport? Are there possibilities for that?
Yes, there is, but that's when you have to come into us, because remember, the main thing is that we restrict hobbyists. We don't want no hobbyists coming near within 5 kilometers of any airdrome or airport. But for what we call a commercial activity, that's what we consider guys who like directors and so forth. You will have to come to us, and then we liaise with the airport, the tower, because what would happen, say for instance, there was actually a scenario where the NMIA, they wanted to do some aerial shots with a drone. How that would have to work is that you liaise with the air traffic controllers who tell you which aircraft is coming in, if it's safe, the altitude you can go, and all the restrictions, and then you build your shots around that. It's a slight limitation, but at the same time, it gives you access to things that you would not be able to do before. So you come in to us, tell us your ideas, and then we tailor it a bit so that it will be safe for everybody involved.
Fair enough. Thank you.
No problem. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, good morning. Jodianne Johnson from UAE, WJC.
Good.
I guess this is a question for you and by extension for our presenters and Jampro. Is it that Jampro West is going to be a one-stop shop in regards to accessing these license and requisite license to do this development? And this is to presenters prior as well.
All right, I can speak from mine, and I'll just check a nod from the other guys if I strain, right? Just big me up. Currently, we are actually working out the streamlining, so Jampro will actually be like your hub, as said by Mr. Allen. You come to Jampro will give you the initial requirements. Like for me, it would actually be location, type of drone, that. That will come to me. If it falls in a certain spectrum, then I may shoot an email to Spectrum, or if it impacts restricted airspace or a type of event that may require protective services to be involved, I shoot an email to them. So we all try to work together, but JAMPRO is your main contact point, if that makes sense to you.
Yes, it does. So in the case, it negates me then from going into Kingston for the Ministry of National Security and Spectrum. It negates it.
Yeah. We're trying not to get everybody to come to Kingston.
Okay.
No. So we'd work with JAMPRO first, but if it reaches a point where you have to come in, unfortunately, you just have to come in. Yes, sorry. Next, the gentleman over there.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
My name is Tony Thompson. I teach here.
Yes, Mr. Thompson.
Can you give us some general guidelines, or the public, some general guidelines about what it is? Because, yes, such as no nighttime, no city, just the general stuff.
All right, the general thing as per our advisory or guideline is this: no drone flying over other people. Meaning, if you are going to fly a drone, you need to get consent of all those involved, or they are part of your whole shoot. Even what I'm recommending to some people now, like if you have a crew working with you, let them sign a consent. For hobbyists, let's start from that side. In your own private dwelling, not above 400 feet, because that will impact helicopters. The type of drone impacts Spectrum and Ministry of National Security, because drones are wide. But let's say we just keep it commercial, the small ones, the little toy ones, but they give you a good picture. I'm just giving you some variables so that it won't go too wide. So basic guideline, line of sight. You must always be able to see it. If you lose control, you're supposed to have systems to get it back, or to automatically land back at home. Home meaning your original point of departure. Yes, they have it built in, but a lot of people don't activate it. That's the problem we're having. Would be good if you could have somebody with you as like an observer to give you situational awareness. Meaning you are flying, you're watching the drone, you're looking at your shots and say, wow, this is nice, but a bird fly across. And the man can say, yo, drop! And you're safe. Or else he hit that, your drone go into Miss Jane's house, smash her window, cut up her little picnic, all them little fun stuff. And then we have an incident and I have to write report, Mr. National Security have to write, and Spectrum say, I don't know about that. And we have fun. But on a whole, it's basically you have control of your drone, keep it within your controlled airspace or in open spaces that don't impact other persons. The main point I want everybody to understand is that the technology is there and can be used for a wide spectrum of things. But let us use it safely to ensure that we don't impact another person's rights. Because one of the problems we have right now, there's a community where everybody's buying a drone to spy on everybody else. Literally, that is happening right now. But we're trying to streamline the people. So we're gently suggesting things and moving forward. Yes, sir.
Can I just piggyback on something?
No problem.
Right. Just to respond to the question, sir. Not just in Jamaica's jurisdiction, but in many other jurisdictions, the regulatory environment for the use of drones is in an infant stage, right? In many jurisdictions, laws have not quite caught up to this technology as yet. But given the fact that drones are aircrafts, then any existing legislation or regulatory framework governing aircrafts, vis-a-vis what Mr. Davis has said about the Civil Aviation Authority, can apply to drones, right? So that is why restricted airspace is something that comes in. Now, he mentioned some general guidelines for hobbyists. But he also mentioned the Shaggy and Friends concert recently, which could not be categorized as hobbyists. It's commercial. There are also industrial applications. The government of Jamaica, in response to the advance of this technology, is currently engaged in developing and streamlining a policy framework to govern the use of drones. Not yet complete, but particularly the Ministry of National Security, with lots of collaboration with JCAA, are drafting something. Now, when it comes to commercial operations, something to also bear in mind, and perhaps Mr. Davis will jump into this some more, is insurance, liability coverage. Drones do crash, just like any vehicle will crash, and there are grievances that can arise. So by the time you start getting into the commercial or industrial applications of drones, we begin to get into the territory now of not only wanting to be satisfied of competence to handle the aircraft, and JCAA either certifying or endorsing the capability of the operators to pilot the vehicles, but also what kind of insurance coverage do you have? So I don't know if you want to say a bit more about that.
Mr. Thompson wants to add something, and then I will.
I just want to add this part. You know, America has the AR-15 program right now. And we're sort of heading there with this. Because you're going to have drones being sold everywhere.
It's already being sold everywhere.
Right? So when you have the drones being sold everywhere, it means anybody can have one. And only a few people licensed. How are you going to deal with that?
Okay.
Because I can break the law anytime I want to. You can't even catch me. You understand what I'm saying there?
Right.
That's the job of government, to solve tough problems. So we're working on it.
And and Mr. Tinder would like to, Spectrum would like to add. Mr.
So just in regards to your statement, you can have it anywhere and everywhere, and we don't know. That's not necessarily correct, because you have Spectrum Management Authority, which utilizes radio frequency monitoring. So we know what is being utilized, and we know where it is being utilized. So just to advise that it's not as free as you think.
Let me also say that if the drone is configured for internet protocol operations, IP, and they all have an internet protocol address, the appropriate agencies have the means
to find you.
So rest assured that you can be observed, and the appropriate actions taken if necessary. I'd just quickly advise, not to steal your thunder, that the JCAA's website has a flight safety notification general.
Yes.
On its website, it's comprehensive reading. It will answer 90% of the queries that you have. I'd recommend that you go to it and familiarize yourself with what JCAA has regarding that.
I think Mr. Producer wants to say something.
Yes, I paid to learn in regards to the drones.
Right.
You spoke about airspace. What about our own ships?
All right.
Because I paid to learn our own ships. And I lost one in the sea because apparently there is some electromagnetic frequency that mess with the
you cross bands.
And took it away completely.
Put it into
the sea.
grounding mode.
Yes.
They protected their ship. It's not anything. They protected their ship.
Okay.
What? All right. That's a good example.
It was parked.
No, but that's a good example.
Okay.
Did you get permission to film anything around that ship?
Not from the captain or anybody.
That is why we ask you guys to come in, because they may see it and say, oh, somebody's invading my personal space. There's a myriad of technology out there. As a drone man, you can go look it up, where I can shoot a beam at it and put it into ground mode.
Yes.
You cannot control it. You will never control it. It's called geofencing. No, that might be the issue. You don't know where the fence is. So you see, it's a great field, but it has many variables. In Trinidad, for example, the Civil Aviation Authority building cannot be entered by a drone. All government buildings in Trinidad basically have something called a geofence. Any drone coming in or operating in it, once it hit that fence, it goes straight to ground. You cannot retrieve it. Your information is gone, because it sends a signal to the controllers and they will stream off or download the information off of it. All right, so unfortunately it went into the sea for you, but knowledge is the key now. So next time, before you launch, ask some questions. Mr. D, get a nice shot of your ship, can work something out. He might say, boy, stay 100 feet away, but you can zoom. You have to move beyond the basic thinking. Go beyond the box. Sorry, hold on. I'm not quite. Yeah, man, in the thrill of it, you does. Yeah, but you pay for it, boy. Oh, sorry. Yes, go ahead.
In simple cases, such as you have a birthday party or something like that, you wouldn't need to be involved in these technical stuff.
All right. You see, the thing with the birthday party, you and your cousin there, right? And you control the drone, and the drone drop in your cousin's head, and the fight broke. Police going to come in. Who will get charged?
I think the person that's operating a drone
right.
would be liable.
So,
it would be just as if, because then you have the line of what's a toy from what's a commercial. So it's a vehicle, I understand. But what if you were using a toy copter?
Same thing applies. Same thing applies. All right. Let me broaden the definition of drones for you guys. A drone is an unmanned aerial vehicle. An aircraft is a vehicle that can use air and produce lift. So anything that can take off, a RC helicopter, a RC plane, will be considered a drone. Understand? Balloons too. That you gone in that area I never want to touch, but yes, balloons too. All of those things. Once you start using it to do certain things, cause your balloon, if it's not a fixed line, it moving, right? So therefore it's a unmanned aerial vehicle. Perfect example of a balloon is the weather balloons that beaming information and going in a specific area is considered a drone to some extent. So for your case, sir, get consent before people come. Yo, when I come to a party, I'm going to fly my drone, come in and have fun.
Yes, but if you got consent from the persons involved at that private location and you're not going above 400 feet, there would be no issue there to just do it?
If it's private, meaning you only taking pictures for yourself, but you're not going to give your cousins. Yeah, if you start give your cousins now, a little money might play. So then we consider it commercial. All right. Private, hold on. I need to give some definitions. Private and hobby use. Birthday party for your child. You want to take pictures of your child that you want to keep. You want to have a little streamer floating around, or the kids doing something with them hit the donkey or something, but you just want pinata, right? And it's fancy, you use a drone to hold it up. Private use. We don't even want it to go near 100 feet in private use, because once you start talking about 200, 300, you're actually about 10 stories up. Yeah? So 100 feet is way high.
Just wanted to finish.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
No,
What else?
no. What I'm trying to get at is there's obviously security concerns and other concerns. However, how practical would it be for persons getting events 1 day, 2 days before, 3 days before, to go through all of the criteria that are necessary to
All right.
on a day-to-day event, you know?
All right. You have your event, you get a late call. Boy, come to your drone thing. Here you have some wicked drones, some Phantom, Maverick, and some Inspire, and you can do your thing. You call us. Normally it's a 3 to 4 day process. 3 to 4 business day process. But we do work with you. Because I am one of the lead in that section. We do work with you. If you are willing to work with us. Because we will even come in on the weekends and help you get your stuff out. But it is a communication thing.
So then there would be a number that we could call.
Yeah, man.
And
I will give the information to Mr. I don't see not one of them. Mr. Chang or Mr. Allen. It's for you guys to come through Jampro. Or if you want to come direct, our number, let me just go from the card. It will be easier that way. Our number is 960-3984. And the section or the division you want to get to is the flight safety division. My number is, should I give me that? 997-2151. I'll give this card to Mr. Allen and anybody else who needs a card for more questions. Remember, it's new technology. As Mr. K said, the regulations are being developed. So what we're trying to do is get everybody competent and basically safe in their usage, so that when the regulations come now, it's not a hard hill or a hard transition into a regulated industry. Yes, Mr. K.
I just want to add one more consideration for persons to bear in mind. I know there can be this feeling that, oh, if I'm going to be below 400 feet and I'm going to be on my property and I'm only capturing footage for my own use, that is fine and that is enough. And that's all I need to consider. But I just want to caution that to the extent that your vehicle can capture image of somebody else's property or somebody else's activity, then privacy issues come into play. And you have to be careful about how you open up yourself to litigation in the event that somebody has a dispute with you about invasion of privacy. So it may not necessarily be the regulators that come down on you, but a fellow citizen. So you could very well be below 400 feet, but you capture something using the technology way off in distance, down the street, 2 blocks away, and you invade somebody's privacy. Particularly if you redistribute the imagery that is captured without that person's permission. So the person may generally say, you know, say, I don't have a problem with you filming for your son's birthday party. Go right ahead. But that does not also equate to permission to distribute, to capture footage of them in their private space and then redistribute that footage. So let's just be careful about that.
Oh yes. You have a question to say? You have a question? Yeah, all right? Okay.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Still morning. Good morning.
No, afternoon,
Good
lunchtime.
afternoon. As it pertains to like the no-fly zone and so on, are we able in our pre-research without contacting, like we have
No.
a Google Maps link, we can just search for those things? So okay.
No, there is the Air Information AIP, Aeronautical Information Publication, that gives you the restricted airspace in Jamaica. So like it would tell you King's House, Camp. A lot of people don't realize a lot of Old Harbor is restricted airspace because that's where they do flight training. So if you want to know, but all right, your question is really two-pronged, so I'll deal with it two ways. If you want to find out that information, contact the JCAA and they can give you information on where, based on where you want to go. Also, a lot of these drones are now being built with the information locked inside. Because we actually had an event like what I told this gentleman before, where the drone would not launch at the Norman Manley International Airport because all airports are locked as a no-fly zone for drones. So he had to get the drone reprogrammed. So to get that is because the Google might not have it exactly correct. All right? For your protection. Anyone else? This lady over here.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So happy for the information being shared here.
No problem.
You answered my question, all of the commentary for where the lines blur between hobbies and commercial, and you started to define hobby, but you didn't quite get to commercial. So in terms of the creative industry, let's say someone starts putting out content, then they become fairly popular, people start to say, can you come and actually do my wedding? I'll pay you. Can you come and film this or that or the other? Where does commercial start, where we definitely have to go to the authorities at that point?
You said the key word, pay. Pay. Once they decide they're going to pay you, once you're doing some financial for hire, any form of transaction, being paid, even if it's bartering, it's commercial. Once you are getting paid for the activity, that is commercial.
In terms of showcasing of Jamaica's beauty, and I want to show aerial footage, nobody's house, nobody donkey, in just scenery. And that is going to be widespread. That is what?
Let me help you. Who are you going to show it to?
The world.
You're going to put it on our website?
Yes.
People going to pay to get the picture, right?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
There might be some affiliated links, or but the video is free. The website is free.
Affiliated link that pays for your site,
Have
that is showing images, you are now commercial.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Sorry, I don't want to have questions, but
I soon answer you. Yes,
but photographers have been doing aerials for years.
Yes, and
we have photographers shooting from tripods, from telephone poles, taking large wide shots. We have 4K photography cameras. Now, how come you differentiate the final product? And then secondly, there's a difference between pay and sell. You understand? If you put up something, like she says, you may not be charging, that might not be where your dividends come from. You understand what I'm saying? I think that's what she's saying. I can take pictures of things that I may not say. You're not buying the picture per se. You're actually visiting my website. Nothing to do with the sale of the goods.
But how do you earn from visiting from the website?
Beg your pardon?
How do you earn from the visiting of the website?
Facebook, Google, whoever.
Right, and that's how it becomes commercial. Because
no, but I'm not selling that picture.
No. All right, let me go a little deeper. Facebook, for example.
Yeah.
Anything you put up, Facebook owns it.
Oh, right.
They commercially can sell it anywhere. So you have entered into a commercial agreement unwittingly. Google. Anything you put on Google, they own it.
But it doesn't apply to photographers.
Yes.
In general.
Yeah, all right. No, it's unwitting.
I understand about the infancy, you know.
Huh?
Yes, I agree to that. Probably what they're reading.
The full content, but
right.
Let me give you a perfect example. Unfortunately, yes.
Therefore, you would have to be litigating or whatever, legislating about every photograph on Google.
All right. Let me tell you where the litigation begins. Somebody's offended. Right, sir? No. let me explain. You took a picture of me. I unwittingly knew of it. I didn't know. My cousin come and say, yo, I see you on this site. Look, type in the name and you see come up. Your name comes up. As the person who took the picture. I said I don't want this picture up. That's where the whole protection of you, as the case was saying before, needs to be done. So you would treat it.
But if I take a picture downtown, I don't want everybody to take a picture of the Supreme Court and they are showing.
No, you're going to be in trouble with Supreme Court because it is a government building. You have to get. Yes, sir.
Take a picture of Rodney's statue.
Yes.
And there are people on the ground.
Yes.
That's the one case. The
Yes.
second case has to do with journalism.
Right.
And the Sunshine Law.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
There are no reason for me to have to go and get signed releases from people because as a journalist I'm allowed to take pictures. As a citizen I'm allowed to take pictures of my country.
That is correct.
What has happened is technology has passed our legislative body by a couple centuries. And it's technology that is posing the problem. But these problems did exist and there are laws that have presently allow me this facility.
And there are laws
And you
that have
can't-
now changed that are going to put
But
you
you're
under the
applying it to
microscope.
drones but not photographers
No,
in
man.
general. Correct?
All right. I'm only saying drones because I am in airspace. Understand? So please, if I've tweaked your conversation a certain way, it's because of where I stand. But the same rules will apply in a broad scale, kind of. If you want to whitewash all of it, I can't speak to that aspect of it. I'm talking about if you come into an airspace, an aircraft, if you go 1 foot, you're in my zone. Yes, because there are some areas where 0 to 3,500 feet is restricted. So you understand? Once it becomes an aircraft, you come in my zone. Right. All right, cool. Miss, you want to say something before? No? Go ahead, sir. I think they want to record you, so they want to hear your voice reverberate.
Yes, the back on drones. The military had drones long before regular people could have access.
That's how technology works. Military always have it first. Yes, that's
Right.
correct.
So, in terms of the regulations that governs.
Talk to Mr. Case. All right. Just to answer you, Jamaica Civil Aviation Authority does not regulate state aircraft. That is what we call military and police aircraft. The Ministry of National Security deals with that aspect, but that is still states. I cannot speak to that. If you want to interact with a state aircraft, you're going to have to go to Ministry of National Security. Understand?
Well, I was just saying that to say the regulations.
No, man, it wouldn't touch them none at all.
Okay.
It's only for civilian. That's how we get our name. Jamaica Civilian. All right. Anybody else? I think I've used up most of your lunchtime, if not all. But and if you need more questions,
Just one curious. I'm just curious about this, right? The fencing.
Yes.
Is this only for state or can
You can put it in your house if you want.
can put it in my house if I want?
It's a commercial thing, you know. But Mr. Kwan saying no. Let's hear what Mr. Kwan has said.
As I had stated before, we regulate the use of radio spectrum.
Right.
Fencing is the emission of a radio signal.
Frequency,
Right.
Mhm.
Just as how cell jammers is illegal to have in your possession. Therefore, a fencing would be illegal to have in your
Possible
possession.
damage. Unless approved.
Unless you come to us and we establish a permit for the use. So you can't just use a fencing without our knowledge. The radio spectrum is managed by SMA. The use of wireless communication requires a permit. So the use of a geofencing would require the intervention of Spectrum Management Authority to authorize its use.
All right, so basically what I'm trying to facilitate here is for everybody to see how all three bodies interact in your business. That is the aim for me right here. That's why I'm trying to field as many questions so that you guys can get your fingers wet so that when something pop up, you don't just do it and then it's a case of a come call knocking on the door. How you doing, sir? You kind of breach. Then bring a long list. And I have to come and say, why did you? You should know better. And you're going to say, but you never know. But ignorance is not an excuse, right, guys? So to run your businesses professionally and at the right standard, because what I realize, a lot of the international film crews that come in, the first thing they ask for is, who do I get my approvals from? We in Jamaica tend to say, yo, I like that shot there. Yeah, shoot it. Then when something, boy, how am I feeling again? Too late. So let us get everything in the right order and everything should work. We are building Jamaica, let's just build it the right way. Yeah? All right, I think that's it. Good afternoon. All right, come on.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. That was very informative. Audience, you guys were great, very engaging. You asked brilliant questions, and that's what this open house is for, is to provide you all with the necessary information so that you guys can go out there and do your jobs. And with that presentation, that concludes our morning session. And I'll invite you guys to join us for lunch. I think lunch is outside, it's ready. The caterers came not too long ago, they're setting up. So you can join us for that. And it's around 12:40, so we will resume at 1:40 p.m. Thank you guys.
Several places that